At the age of 30, I decided to quit, and so ended a silent crash that no one ever knew about. It took me 5 years to rise from assistant to become Alex's chief secretary. Then 3 more to make myself someone he couldn't do without. In the end, it only took 5 minutes to write my resignation letter. And just 1 second to send it. Chapter 1. When I handed in my resignation, Alex frowned slightly, raised his eyes, and looked at me steadily and calmly. Give me a reason. I lowered my head to avoid his gaze and tugged at the corners of my lips to force a sincere enough smile. Mr. Liu, I'm 30 this year. It's about time I get married. I paused, then added, my boyfriend proposed to me recently. To make my resignation go smoothly, I told a harmless lie. Alex tapped his fingers on the table, one beat after another. That meant he was extremely irritated. Maybe I should feel a little lucky. At least, my leaving didn't leave him completely indifferent. After a long silence, Alex handed the resignation letter back to me. I can approve your marriage leave. As for resigning, I hope you'll reconsider. For a moment, I hesitated. There was a seductive little voice in my head whispering, say yes, say yes. At least you'll still get to see him. But another voice reminded me, Regina, he's getting engaged. Harboring feelings for someone who's taken is wrong. My hand hovered in midair for a long while. In the end, I didn't take the letter back. This job is too demanding. After I get married, I'd like to focus more on my family. I'll finish handing off all the projects I'm working on. I'm sorry, Mr. Liu. With the conversation at that point, Alex said nothing more. He simply replied, got it. Congratulations on your wedding. By the time I left the office, Alex was already back to his work. After all, to him, I was just a subordinate at most. The most capable one. Chapter 2. That day, I sat at my desk and, for once, stared blankly at the little green plant in front of me. Moments like this were rare. I was usually swamped, handling daily work schedules, and also acting as Alex's personal assistant. My phone stayed on 24/7. Whenever Alex needed me, I had to show up immediately, basically one person doing the work of several. Of course, Alex paid me well. Within a few years, I had reached financial freedom. Elise had to call my name several times before I snapped out of my daze. Miss Chan, Mr. Liu asked me to tell you, you should head over first to prep for tonight's gathering. The party was to welcome Lucas Ren, who had just returned from studying abroad. Everyone invited belonged to Alex's tight inner circle. They were all second-generation elites, rich, powerful, and impossible to please. Technically, I wasn't part of that circle, but I was too damn useful to ignore. Someone who could manage everyone's moods and preferences. Run the event flawlessly without a single mistake. There weren't many like that. As soon as I arrived at the venue, I threw myself into the preparations. From the food to the drinks to the desserts, I made sure everything was in place, and personally reminded the staff of everyone's likes and allergies. Remove all lilies, Mr. Han is allergic. Keep the lights dim, Mr. Kim just had eye surgery. Don't forget the Ho Kui tea that Mr. Ren likes. By the time the sun set and the sky darkened, guests began to trickle in. The first to arrive was Marco Kim. When he saw me, he gave me a casual greeting. When's Alex getting here? I checked my watch and answered carefully. He has a meeting tonight. Should be here in about an hour. He flopped onto the sofa, looking drained. Dark circles hung under his eyes. I told the staff to lower the music volume and brought him a blanket. Autumn nights are chilly. Don't catch a cold. There's still some time before the others arrive. Take a rest. He smiled as he took the blanket and teased. Honestly, have you ever considered dumping Alex and coming to work for me instead? I'll pay you double. People like them were used to others buttering them up. That's why I stood out. I never asked them for anything, so our interactions were easy, even genuine, and oddly enough, that earned their respect. Writing his words, I smiled and replied, well, I'll remember that. If I ever end up unemployed, I'll be counting on you to take me in. Mr. Kim. Chapter 3. As night deepened and the streetlights lit up, more people arrived one after another. Alex walked in wearing a black overcoat, bringing with him a trace of autumn's chill. I took his coat from him, thinking it might be the last time I ever do this. Once everyone was a little tipsy, I found the right moment to bring up my resignation. I owed these people some gratitude for the way they treated me over the years. I raised my glass and stood. I've decided to resign. When I started, I knew nothing and made plenty of rookie mistakes. Thank you all for your patience and kindness. From now on, life takes us in different directions. I hope we meet again someday. Maybe it was the autumn air, or maybe it was the mood, but the table went silent for a moment. It was Qin Ming who broke the awkward pause, lifting his glass toward me. At first, I always thought you had ulterior motives toward Alex, but now, I finally believe you didn't. Everyone knew exactly what he meant. All of Alex's former secretaries had confessed their feelings and ended up getting fired. Eventually, Alex gave up and only hired male secretaries, yet still ended up being confessed to. He earned himself quite the reputation as an irresistible charmer. Someone patted Alex on the shoulder, teasing, "Who would have thought? Someone actually immune to your charm." Alex lit a cigar nonchalantly and said with a smirk, "Get lost." After dinner, some of the group gathered for a casual card game. Partway through, Marco asked offhandedly, "Alex, have you met the Sue family girl your grandma picked for you?" My heart skipped a beat. The glass in my hand hovered midair. After a moment, Alex answered lazily, "No, as long as grandma's happy. One bride's the same as another." In their world, marriage always came with stakes, deals, alliances, strategy. In a way, it was fair. They had access to things most people could only dream of at a price. Apparently, Alex had accepted that reality too. I'd met Rita once, a gentle girl from the South, graceful and sweet, a good match, if I had a say in it. I would have hoped Alex's ending would be different from everyone else's. Chapter 4. The gathering lasted late into the night. Drivers waited outside, ready to take everyone home as soon as we wrapped up. Only Alex's driver had gotten into a minor accident and arrived late, which led to the one scenario I'd been trying to avoid, just the two of us. Alone. We stood under the street lamp, side by side, our shadows stretching long beneath the light. Moments like this always stirred up the unrest inside me, those bitter little thoughts I kept buried. But Alex didn't know a thing. He just stood there quietly, the alcohol dulling his usual sharpness. After a while, his driver finally arrived. Alex turned to me with gentlemanly poise and asked, "Want to ride together?" I shook my head and offered a smile, grateful, but distant. "Thank you, Mr. Liu, but my fiancé is already on the way." He didn't say anything else, just gave a small nod and got into the car. And then, I was alone. All the layers of masks I wore in daylight could finally come off. I kicked off my heels, plopped down on a flower bed, and sat there, dazed. For a brief moment, I didn't know where to go. Soon, light rain began to fall, the first autumn rain after the start of the season. It landed cold and heavy on my skin. Barefoot, I walked down the road. This was a wealthy neighborhood, and it took a long time to find a spot where I could catch a ride. The road we usually took was under construction, so the driver had to circle back. Alex hadn't expected to see Regina again, waiting in the rain by the roadside, one hand loosely swinging a single shoe. He was surprised. He'd never imagined the always composed Miss Chan would look, well, so unpolished. Back at the office, she was always crisp in suits, her shirts buttoned all the way to the top. He'd seen plenty of women undo a few buttons and lean toward him, pretending to be casual. But not Chan. She was the exception. That's why he trusted her, partly for her skill, but mostly for her sense of boundaries. As they passed by, the driver asked, "Should we offer Miss Chan a ride?" Alex didn't blink. His voice was flat. No need. He already had a bad impression of her so-called fiancé. Chan was a smart woman, but it seemed her taste in men wasn't great. Still, love was like drinking water, only the one drinking knows its temperature. It wasn't his place to interfere. Chapter 5. I wasn't sure if the car I saw was Alex's, it passed by so quickly. Maybe I imagined it. This was a wealthy neighborhood. People like me, waiting to hail a cab, were rare. The driver had to come from far away. I stood until my legs were numb before the car finally arrived. By the time I got home, it was 2 or 3 in the morning. The whole house was dead silent. To the outside world, I had everything: a loving fiancé, a happy home, lots of friends. People often looked at me enviously and said, "What a perfect life." But the truth was, I had nothing. No family, no partner, no friends. When I was in middle school, my mom was diagnosed with late-stage breast cancer. She had surgery to remove her breast. But 6 months later, it came back. Then one morning, my dad left for work and never returned. He took all the money with him, leaving behind a sick wife and an underage daughter. When Mom found out, she was oddly calm. She quietly underwent chemotherapy and hospital stays. And on good days, she even cooked for me. One evening, I came home from school to find a table full of dishes. She sat across from me, smiling brightly. For some reason, I felt an overwhelming fear. The food had a strange smell. I thought of the bottle of rat poison she bought the other day. That night, I realized just how strong my mother's grip could be. I couldn't break free. No matter how I struggled, a desperate instinct to survive made me bolt the second she looked away. I don't even know how, but I ended up on the rooftop. She followed, crying, arms outstretched. Baby, the world's so cruel. I can't leave you here alone. Come with me, sweetheart. We'll still be mother and daughter in the next life. I cried too. I was exhausted, and I missed the scent of detergent on her clothes so much. Maybe that's okay, I thought. Maybe being alive isn't that great after all. The rooftop wind was howling that night, but my mom's arms were warm. She held my hand, walking step by step toward the edge. Just as we were about to fall, a pair of thin but strong hands yanked me back. He held on to me, no matter how I kicked and thrashed. In the wind, the only thing I remembered was a pair of startlingly bright eyes. I survived, but my mom didn't. That man was Alex. He not only saved me, he gave me a reason to live, to repay him. Back then, I felt like I betrayed my mother. I was drowning, and Alex was the only driftwood I could cling to. Later, the fire trucks, police, and ambulances all came. Amid the chaos, I held onto his hand and looked up at him. How do I repay you? I still remember 16-year-old Alex looking down at me, serious as could be. Then remember to come find me. It's as if my entire life has been trapped in that one night my mom died. And Alex, he's been my only light ever since. Chapter 6. That night, like always, I was swallowed by dreams, haunted by the past. I saw my mother questioning why I didn't go with her. I saw my father's silent expression the day he left. I woke up drenched in sweat, unable to speak. Checked my temperature, 38 degrees Celsius. Usually, I'd pop a fever pill and go to work like nothing happened. But this time, I actually took a day off. I needed time to think about where my life was headed. When Alex arrived at the office, he noticed his secretary Chan wasn't there. Upon asking, he was told she was sick and on leave. He frowned. That guy she called her fiancé had completely lost his favor. Elise temporarily stepped in to help. She brought in a cup of coffee. Alex took a slow sip, his expression unchanged. One sugar cube too many. He didn't say a word, just set the cup aside. The morning meeting files had mistakes. Thankfully, he already knew the key points of the negotiation, or it could have been disastrous. The office felt a bit colder. The humidifier wasn't on. His throat was dry. He couldn't pinpoint what exactly was wrong, just that everything felt a bit off. For the first time, Alex thought of Regina. He rarely did. It was as if she had no presence at all, but her presence was like spring rain, subtle but essential. You barely noticed her, but everything worked perfectly. He frowned again, the second time today, all because of that so-called fiancé who stole away his chief secretary. I stayed in bed all day, thinking, but came to no conclusion. I felt like a boat adrift in the sea, unable to tell north from south. So the next morning, I quietly went back to work. At the office, Elise looked at me nervously and whispered. Mr. Liu didn't seem in a good mood. He only took one sip of yesterday's coffee. The cup was still on the desk. I dipped a finger into it, tasted it, and said, "Too much sugar. It should be exactly 3 cubes. No more, no less." Then I demonstrated the right way to make it. Elise watched carefully. As the new cup finished brewing, Alex walked into the office. I don't know if I was imagining it, but the corners of his lips seemed to rise slightly, and his eyes held a touch of something close to resentment. Chapter 7. Handing over my responsibilities turned out to be far more complicated than I imagined. I was in charge of too many things, transferring them all at once wasn't easy. And Alex was never someone easy to serve. Every little detail of his life needed to be managed with care. So I grabbed a notebook and started jotting everything down, big and small, whatever came to mind. That delay made it impossible to wrap things up within a month as planned. And so, I got caught in something I'd rather have avoided. Picking up Rita at the airport to take her to the Liu family estate. Even though I'd never acted on it, I'd once harbored feelings for Alex. Seeing the woman he was meant to marry brought a twinge of guilt. Rita wore a pale blue cheapao, a vivid jade pendant hanging from her neck, clearly expensive. Her hair was pinned up with a delicate hairpin. She stood out with that innate elegance of someone born into wealth. I smiled and stepped forward. "Miss Sue, Mr. Liu asked me to pick you up. On the way." She asked me about Alex, understandably anxious about marrying a man she'd barely met. I saw the nervousness in her eyes and gently reassured her. "Mr. Liu is a very good man. No need to worry. Miss Sue, if anything comes up, you can always talk to me." She looked at me with visible gratitude. We chatted all the way to the Liu estate. I had planned to leave immediately after dropping her off, but the old master called me back. He was a man once known for his ruthless tactics in the business world. Now over 70, he still carried an air of ferocity, especially in those sharp, hawk-like eyes. "Secretary Chan, where's Alex?" "Alex isn't here?" Keeping my face neutral, I answered carefully. "Work's been intense today. Mr. Liu may be a bit late." The old man gave a cold snort and, in a rare show of mercy, told me to bring Alex back. I had once seen the old man punish Alex himself, 6 strokes of a whip. Deep and bloody, the scars were still there on his back. As soon as I walked out the door, I started calling Alex nonstop. Thank God, on the 3rd try, he finally picked up. Chapter 8. I rushed to ask where he was, but he didn't answer. After a long pause, he just said my name, Regina. His voice was hazy, as if he'd been drinking. I could hear heavy ocean wind in the background. I think I knew where he was. When I got there, Alex was leaning against the rocks by the shore, a few cheap bottles of supermarket liquor beside him. His hair was tousled in the night wind. When he heard me, he glanced up. His eyes were misty but sharp, half drunk, half sober. "You're here? Give me a minute." He patted the space next to him, motioning me over. "Let's talk." The Liu estate sat not far from the cliff. At night it looked resplendent, lights glowing, though its traditional architecture gave it a solemn air. Alex suddenly asked, "Pretty, isn't it?" I was still staring at his flawless jawline and replied instinctively, "Very." My face flushed instantly. Thankfully, he didn't notice. He continued, "But inside, it's just a tomb. So what if it's white jade halls and golden steeds? It's full of bones and rot." He said it with a smile, but his tone was utterly serious. Rumors had always swirled around the Liu family's shady beginnings. In recent years, they'd been trying to clean up. I'd spent 7 years watching Alex fight his way to the top of the Liu group. Blood, betrayal, corporate warfare, none of it for outsiders to know. So I asked the question that came to mind, "Are you happy?" The words "I'm happy" circled on his tongue. He chuckled instead and didn't answer. Then he looked at me and said, "Your fiancé's not good enough." I blinked, startled, but he didn't elaborate. Instead, he nodded slightly and said, "Sorry, that was out of line." He downed the last of his drink, then stood up, and just like that, he was once again the cold, untouchable Mr. Liu. Chapter 9. On the way home, I kept thinking about what Alex meant by those words. I couldn't figure it out. Just like I'd never understood why, 10 years ago, he showed up alone on that rooftop of a rundown building. But none of it mattered anymore. I was leaving. From here on, the mountains are high, the river's long. We'll probably never see each other again. The day I resigned, it rained. Southern rain was always like this, light, fine, endless. I sat silently at my desk, packing my things. I'd sat in this seat for nearly a decade, from a clueless girl in her early 20s to the independent woman I am now. I knew that every morning at 9, sunlight would slant onto the cactus I kept. I also knew that if I tiptoed just a little, I could catch a glimpse of Alex's silhouette through the gap. 4 years. I lived clumsily by clinging to these little things. But now, it was time to go. I'd repaid his life-saving grace for 8 years. From here on, Rita could walk the rest of the path with him. Elisa's eyes were brimming with tears. She looked at me without speaking. I wiped them away and smiled. Silly. It's not like we'll never see each other again. But I knew deep down, we never would. This city held too much pain for me. It was time to leave. As I turned away, I still felt a trace of regret. I had deliberately delayed my resignation, hoping to catch one last glimpse of Alex, yet we never crossed paths. After leaving the company, I slept like the dead, making up for every missed hour over the years. I bought some alcohol, turned the TV up to full volume. A comedy was playing. I laughed, loud, like an idiot. And then, after the laughter faded, I just sat there on the floor, staring into the darkness, lost. When I was little, my biggest wish was to study hard, so my parents wouldn't fight. After my dad left, my wish was to make a lot of money, so my mom could stay alive. After my mom died, my wish was to become Alex's most reliable assistant. If he was happy, then so was I. But now, I suddenly didn't know where to go. I was still lost in thought when the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Alex. I panicked and opened the door, only to realize I was still wearing pink bunny pajamas. Too late to hide. I forced a professional smile and invited him in. Chapter 10. Compared to my awkwardness, Alex was composed. I called. He said simply, "There's an urgent file I need tonight." The backup copy was missing, and I happened to be nearby. That hint of redness in his cheeks was gone in a second. I switched back to my professional smile. "Of course. Mr. Liu, please. Have a seat. I'll go find it." While I searched for the document, Alex sat on the sofa. His manners kept him from looking around. He just watched me. That alone made my skin crawl. The more nervous I got, the harder it was to find anything. Alex chuckled softly and reassured me. "Take your time." Then he asked, "Does your fiancé not live here?" Instinctively, I lied. "He gets home late." It took me half an hour to gather the file, print it, and hand it over to him. Alex accepted it, but for some reason, he just stared at me, silent. It was unsettling. I opened my mouth to speak, but he smiled. That same gentle yet distant smile of his. "I'm getting married soon," he said. "I can't find a suitable person to handle the ceremony. Would you help me out? I'll pay your full rate." I'd never been good at saying no to Alex. Before I could think it through, my head nodded on its own. Then I smiled lightly. Whatever I had wanted to say, swallowed it back down. And just like that, I was back by his side again, helping plan his engagement. Maybe that's for the best. Maybe seeing him marry with my own eyes is the only way I'll finally let go. Chapter 11. Because I felt guilty toward Rita, I handled everything myself, hoping she could have the perfect engagement ceremony. But Alex had been strangely busy lately. He rarely showed up. Everything went through me. He'd relay his wishes, and I'd explain them. It was as if this wasn't his engagement, but someone else's. Rita looked more and more downcast each day. When she tried on her dress, she gave me a pleading look. "Secretary Chan, could you ask him if he's coming today?" By professional standards, I shouldn't have made that call, but I did anyway. When the line connected, Alex's voice came through. "Hello?" The background was noisy, his voice raspy from alcohol. He was at a banquet. I was about to hang up, but I remembered Rita's wistful expression. I hesitated, then carefully asked, "The dress arrived today. Will you be coming to the estate?" There was a long silence on the other end. Just as I was about to apologize for overstepping, Alex replied, "Sure, come pick me up." I didn't know why he wanted me to do that, but I did. By the time I arrived, the party had already ended. Alex lay alone on the sofa, obviously drunk. I crouched beside him, gently patting his shoulder. "Mr. Liu? Mr. Liu?" Suddenly, he looked up, eyes sharp like a blade. I froze for a moment, but just as quickly, that clarity vanished. His gaze turned hazy with alcohol, like I'd imagined it all. I helped him up and stumbled with him to the car. As soon as we were in, he passed out. Through the rearview mirror, I could see his face. Rarely did I have such an open chance to look at him, so I stared for a few seconds. My guilt toward Rita deepened. I tore my gaze away and silently recited a calming mantra. But something started to feel wrong. I've always trusted my instincts, and they were screaming. A black SUV had been tailing me for the past 30 minutes. Mr. Liu, Mr. Liu. I tried to wake Alex, but he didn't move. I had no choice. I hit the gas. The SUV sped up. 2. We raced down the cliffside highway. It was modified, whatever I did. It kept up easily, then it swerved and crashed straight into us before driving off. Bang, our car flipped. Thankfully, I twisted the wheel just in time to avoid falling into the sea. Blood blurred my vision. My head spun. I clawed my way out of the crumpled seat. Alex was pinned behind the console. He opened his eyes at last, trying to move but trapped under the frame. I found a crowbar in the trunk and used everything I knew about physics to try to pry the car open, but it wouldn't budge. Fuel had spilled. It was creeping outward. Smoke and heat curled up from the back seat. The more urgent the situation, the clearer my mind became. Panic was useless. I had one goal: get Alex out. Flames licked closer. The car could explode any second. Alex looked up at me. The salary I gave you isn't worth your life. Secretary Chan. Go. The car's about to blow. He wouldn't stop talking. I snapped. Shut up. Alex laughed, out of nowhere. I didn't have time to wonder why. My hand had been cut at some point. Blood dripped steadily to the ground. I used the last of my strength and pulled Alex free. I dragged him, step by step, out of the wreckage. Moments after we got clear, the car exploded. The flames painted the night sky red. I was glad I never bought into the slim and delicate aesthetic. I was strong. I had endurance, and that's what saved both our lives. In the distance, sirens wailed, and only then did the exhaustion come crashing in like a wave. Everything went black. Chapter 12. Alex woke earlier than Regina. At the final moment before the crash, Secretary Chan had turned the steering wheel toward her own side. Now he sat by her bedside, as if seeing this woman clearly for the first time. Alex had been abandoned many times in his life. When he was young, he and his father were once kidnapped. There was only room for one on the escape boat. Without hesitation, they threw him off. No matter how loudly he cried or screamed, all he could do was watch the boat fade into the distance. His mother had once promised never to leave him, but in the end, she used a rope to end her life. Many people had walked into Alex's life, and just as easily walked away. He was always the one who got left behind. Yet this woman before him, she had every reason to leave him, and she didn't. He'd always prided himself on understanding people, reading them like books. But this time, he didn't know what she wanted. What does she want? He wondered. Chapter 13. It felt like a strange, chaotic dream. When I woke up, Alex was staring at me, lost in thought. My heart sank. Had he figured out that I had feelings for him? He gazed at me in silence. Our eyes met. My palms were sweating, like I was waiting for judgment. Why did you save me? My mind spun. Then, I smiled and replied, Mr. Liu, I'm a gambler. Not everyone gets the chance to save the CEO of the Liu Group. It's a bet I couldn't pass up. Alex frowned, studying me, like he was calculating the truth in my words. What do you want? In his world, those who claim to want nothing usually want the most. A fair exchange of interests is what they trust most. I considered what kind of request would be worth risking my life. Something that would make Alex feel at ease. I want 1% of Liu Group's shares for a lifetime of peace of mind. His frown loosened. I knew I'd played the right move. He smiled faintly. Shares are unreliable. How about a commercial property in the city center instead? Secretary Chan? I laughed too. A storefront worth tens of millions? Thank you, Mr. Liu. We each got what we needed. Alex wouldn't need to feel guilty, so he stood and said coolly, Rest well. You don't need to worry about the engagement anymore. I stayed in the hospital for a whole week. The day I was discharged just happened to be the day of Alex's grand engagement. News of the Lusu alliance flooded every channel. The venue was a dream, adorned with roses. It was good. From now on, our paths would never cross again. I had repaid what I owed, gotten what I deserved. So why did I still feel sad? I wandered the streets alone, not knowing where to go, and ended up at a bar. All these years, I was always the one cleaning up everyone's messes. I rarely drank. I didn't even like alcohol. They say alcohol numbs sorrow, but it was bitter, so bitter. It made me cry. The tears fell into the glass, turning it into a drink that was both salty and bitter. Right before I blacked out, I opened my phone and ordered a courier, told them to make sure I got home safely. Chapter 14. At the engagement banquet, Alex received a call. It wasn't one of the staged calls he had arranged in advance. It was from Secretary Chan, but it didn't matter. He just needed a reason to leave. What the excuse was, didn't matter. He drove to the bar. A guy in a blue vest rushed out to greet him. She told me to get her home, but never gave me an address. I had no choice but to call her PIN number. He glanced at Alex nervously and asked, "You're not her boss, are you? She won't rate me badly tomorrow, right?" Alex took Regina from him and reassured the panicked delivery guy. "Don't worry, she won't. Leave the rest to me." He helped her toward the car. The woman in his arms wasn't exactly cooperative, poking his cheek one moment, tugging his hair the next. She was really drunk. They say drunk words are sober thoughts. Alex decided to probe her a bit. "What are you doing by my side?" She frowned as if deep in thought, then giggled foolishly. "To repay a debt." Alex frowned again. "What debt?" "A life debt." He asked again. "And how do you plan to repay it?" "By giving him everything good in this world." "Why would you give him everything good in this world?" "Because I love him." Back in university, Alex had taken a course on interrogation. The key was to follow the subject's logic, go deeper with each layer, and gently lead them to your core question. He thought he was going to get something vague or avoidant, but instead, he got this answer. She loved him. Secretary Chan loved him. Alex stared at Regina again and again. She looked completely out of it. Drunk, not faking. Many people had said they loved him. He had seen many kinds of love. Some fierce, some tender. But this was the first time he saw love like this. A silent love. Hidden for years. Unknown to anyone. Some things that never made sense suddenly did. Why were there no signs of a man in Secretary Chan's home? Alex thought to himself, can I believe her? Can someone really risk their life just because of love? Chapter 15. The next day, I woke up with a splitting headache. I vaguely remembered dreaming. The only clear image was those deep, dark eyes of Alex. Why did I dream about him again? Dreaming about someone else's husband, it's immoral, I thought. For a long time, I forced myself not to follow any news about the Lu group. I wandered aimlessly across cities, buying train tickets, getting off at random stops, drifting without purpose. I visited people in person, assessed situations, and made donations accordingly. Sometimes I wondered, maybe my mom did want to live. If someone had pulled me back that day, would everything have been different? There are too many people suffering in this world. I can only help those I see in front of me. The next time I saw news about Alex, it was about the bankruptcy of the Lu group. On the cover, a photo of Alex and Rita had been torn in half, with bold red characters. Engagement cancelled. Where will the Lu group go? My heart clenched. I called Rita. Her voice sounded apologetic, but in the end, she only sighed. Secretary Chan, you know better than anyone. I never married a man. I married a family. I had no choice. Once the panic passed, my mind cleared, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized, maybe this had always been Alex's plan. The Lu group had always looked grand from the outside, expanding into every industry. But inside, it was unstable. Crisis lurked beneath the surface. I had tried to warn him, but he brushed it all off with vague responses. I thought he had a strategy. Turns out, he had made up his mind long ago. I remembered how he looked that night. Drunk. To Alex, the Lu family had always been a prison. Suddenly, I felt he shouldn't be alone right now. Just like that night on the rooftop. When I was about to jump, Alex had grabbed my hand. Now it was my turn. No matter who it is, someone just needs to hold his hand. And so I ran toward the company. What had once been a bright, towering office was now cold and dark. Their last bit of money had gone into employee severance. I passed rows of empty desks and pushed open the door. Alex sat wrapped in shadow. The wind from the Capitol rattled the blinds. He looked up at me, eyes unreadable. I stepped forward and took his hand. I had prepared so many things to say, but now, I remembered none of them. All I knew was, I had to hold his hand, just like he once held mine. Chapter 16. He thought of his mother again, a poor girl who married into a powerful family, only to become a madwoman hidden in the shadows of a mansion. They tried to turn a wild child into the perfect society matron. She had to be graceful, composed, calculating. Everyone added fuel to the fire, until she burned out. They said she lacked blessing, that she wasn't cut out for this life. But what if the rules were wrong to begin with? The Lou group still operated in the shadows. His mother had seen things. She couldn't stand to be part of it. And so, they devoured her. Alex had planned to face it all alone, to let all sins be buried with him. But then Regina came. Because of love? He'd seen her arrive. While everyone else was busy packing up to leave, she walked through the mess, straight to him, against the current, like a knight coming to protect a fallen princess. Alex chuckled bitterly at the thought. What kind of idiot does something like that? She didn't say a word. She just stepped forward and held his hand. Warmth slowly seeped into his frozen fingers. Only then did Alex realize. His hands had been cold for so long, and so he tightened his grip. The wind still howled, the storm still raged, but her warmth was real. Chapter 17. I stayed by Alex's side as he carried out the final liquidation of the Lou group. He accepted media interviews. Some enraged citizens pelted him with eggs. The Lou group owed too many blood debts. The public needed someone to blame. And this was what it deserved. The day the Lou group officially declared bankruptcy. Old Master Lou had a stroke and was rushed to the hospital. Alex asked me to drink with him. When I arrived, I realized the location was his downtown apartment. I paused at the door, unsure. Is this really okay? I wanted to say, we weren't exactly on terms where we should be drinking together. Wouldn't this be inappropriate? Alex lowered his eyes. There was a trace of loneliness around him. And was that a catch in his voice? Had he been crying? Regardless, he was still his grandfather. My heart clenched tight. I took the bottle from him. His eyes lit up. Fine. If I must accompany a fallen king, I'll do it. Enduring is what I'm best at, isn't it? I had never seen Alex like this. His tie was loose, shirt untucked, suit crumpled beyond saving. He looked worn, fragile, like he was dissolving into the night. He always felt unreachable, a man from the heavens, always surrounded by crowds, every move elegant and reserved. But now, it was as if someone from the sky had finally fallen to earth. In his haze, he kept calling my name over and over. He insisted I respond, again and again. His voice, raspy from alcohol, brushed against my ears. One word at a time, striking my heart like drum beats. Suddenly, he leaned in, only inches between us. I could see the light hitting his lashes, casting soft shadows. Secretary Chan, will you always be here? I didn't answer. After all, no one stays forever. And what am I to him? To be always here? But he kept asking, like he wouldn't stop until I gave him something. In the end, I gave in, helplessly. Yes, I'll always be here. Satisfied. He quieted down for a while. He stared at me, frowning, as if deep in thought, then suddenly said he was hot, and yanked off 2 shirt buttons. There was something vaguely seductive in the way he moved. I'd never imagined that word, seductive, would one day apply to Alex. I froze for a moment, forced myself to look away. But for someone claiming to be hot, he kept leaning toward me. My face burned. This winter is way too warm. Using the last of my willpower, I pulled away from him. He looked up at me, puzzled, then went back to drinking. Eventually, he passed out. Right before he did, he stared at me for a long moment. In his eyes, a look of encouragement? Why encouragement? After settling him in, I went home, laid awake all night, still couldn't figure it out. Chapter 18. The next day, Alex called. He specifically thanked me for taking such good care of him. I smiled. a little embarrassed, and said politely, "It's what I should do, Mr. Liu." There was a brief silence. Then Alex gritted his teeth and said my name. "Regina, you really are." He didn't finish the sentence. The call ended abruptly, leaving me utterly confused. The Liu group was gone. There wasn't much reason for Alex and me to keep seeing each other. We hadn't seen each other in days. The next time we met, he showed up drunk, knocking on my door. The moment I opened it, he collapsed into my arms. I used all my strength to drag him to the sofa. Just as I stood up to leave, he grabbed my wrist, and I fell into his arms. We were so close. He looked at me seriously, and softly said, "Regina," a name that shouldn't mean much, but from his lips, it was intoxicating. At that moment, his eyes held only me. My heart pounded uncontrollably, closer, and closer, and finally, everything that came after was chaos. Everything spun out of control. All the self-control I thought I had turned to ash. When I woke up the next morning, I panicked and ran. Halfway through, I remembered. This was my house. I stayed out until the sky darkened, then slowly pushed the door open. The lights came on. Alex was still there, sitting on the couch, looking at me with a smirk that wasn't quite a smile. What? Planning not to take responsibility? Chapter 19. I stood there, frozen, caught between running and staying. "Let's talk." I was planning to tell him to forget about last night. Just chalk it up to too much wine and poor judgment. But he raised a hand, stopping me. "You're not exactly good with words. So let me talk first." Alex looked deadly serious. He hadn't even looked this serious on the day the Liu group went bankrupt. It made me nervous. "Regina, you've always seen me too kindly. Truth is, I'm just an ordinary man, full of greed, jealousy, and resentment like anyone else." I shook my head, but he continued, "I know your head's still a mess. It's unfair to make you decide anything now, but if I give you time, you'll see who I really am, and once you do, you might stop liking me. I don't care if what you feel is admiration, gratitude, or longing. The point is, you started this. You don't get to walk away just like that." Then, he pulled out a ring, eyes burning. He looked straight at me. "Regina, will you marry me?" My mind went blank. Somehow, I nodded, and just like that, the ring was on my finger. I had once told a small lie to resign successfully. Now I was agreeing to the truth of my life. "Wah?" Alex smiled at me. "Come on. Where to?" "To get our marriage certificate." We became the last couple registered that day. When we walked out, the sky was painted in brilliant dusk. Clouds turned crimson, and just like that, all my longing, all my doubt, all my suppressed feelings, finally came to rest.